Okay, welcome to the fourth edition of our new podcast. First Thought Wrong, sponsored by Never Alone Recovery, and I'm Johnny and Brian here as usual, and we have a special guest, Brittany,
Hi.
today. You want to tell us 30 seconds?
30 seconds what about me?
Yeah.
Well, my name is Brittany Black, and I'm from Northwest Indiana. I am 34 years old. I'm an insurance claim specialist, and this month I celebrated 2 years of continuous clean time.
2 years.
2 years.
Congratulations.
Woo.
So proud. So
2 days
proud.
apart, her and I.
Yeah.
They're 2 days apart, and
Yep.
We didn't
you
plan
guys
that.
are very good friends and have
We are.
known each
Yeah.
other your entire sobrieties.
And then some,
Yeah.
actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's real awesome.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. Did you pay her to say that?
You guys heard that.
Yeah. There was dollars being shifted around somewhere. Okay, so we're gonna get into it, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're the three of us are all in recovery, and that's great. I want to kind of get into what life was like before addiction. I don't think we've talked about it briefly. But I think that's ultimately there's something in the past that leads to the future, right? And maybe we can uncover something today. You never know. So what was life like before addiction? Actually, let's start out with how old were you when you started using, and what was life like before that?
Well, I started using really my drug of choice when I was 19 years old. But life before drugs, I kind of was, and I blamed it on my parents for a long time. I was dealt a pretty shitty hand. Both of my parents are drug addicts, and there was a lot of domestic violence. There was a lot of mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. It was never healthy. It was very toxic, and it was awful. And I remember saying I just can't wait till I'm 18. I can't wait till I'm 18. That's why we were talking earlier. I graduated a year early. I couldn't wait to get out of all of that environment. But honestly, my dad, it was in recovery, and without him, I would have never been introduced, to the program and the steps. And so in a weird backhanded way, it kind of worked out in my favor, once I finally decided to, stop using it and to change my life. But I had to go through all that. I don't really play the victim anymore. It happened. Okay. People have been through worse, and I'm just grateful that I got out of it alive, so.
Gotcha. Brian, what about you? When did you start using, and what was life like before that?
So my first use of any substance was 10. I was at a wedding and I had my first sip of alcohol. My first use of narcotics was 12 years old. And, life before that was chaotic. My mother, drug addict herself, who sold narcotics for a powerful motorcycle organization locally, nationally. And then my dad was DEA agent and the
Wow.
lieutenant of our local drug task force. And so you can imagine the trauma that I experienced with mom being on that side of the law and dad being on this side. They didn't get along. One of my earliest childhood memories is my mom stabbing my dad in the chest with a pair of scissors, trying to kill him. And, the things that I seen through her addiction once they separated, the parties, the loud motorcycles, the fights, the violence, being became a very normal part of my everyday life for a long time.
Normal. That's the word. That's the word that gets thrown around in the program a lot because we all have this kind of definition of normal and what normal is, and it's crazy to what normal can become. And when you're raised in it, I'm a big believer in learned behavior. We
Right.
become our surroundings. And my first drink, I was very young, but I was even younger when I was taking sips. I come from a long line of drinkers and druggers and stuff like that. So it's that becomes the normal. My uncle owned a bar, and it was the funnest place in the world. And I tell everybody it's not until recently, having 21 years sober, that I can finally say, hey, maybe my childhood wasn't as normal
Right.
as I thought
Right.
it was.
This doesn't happen.
I was a normal average kid outside playing ball as often as I could, and then got introduced to a different lifestyle, which was drinking and drugs and smoking and anything I could get my hands on that I saw the people around me do, and that was normal. And it's crazy how we get this vision of what normal is, and that's what it becomes for us. And when especially with drugs, and I didn't try any hard drugs until I was like 23 years old.
Oh.
But my drinking was, crazy, and I was steadily, my life was going down, 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 down. And then as soon as I took that first, snort of cocaine, it was like, boom,
Game over.
the bottom just dropped out, and it took over my life for 2.5 years until I quit. And then, I'm fortunate, I'm very lucky to be able to say that I've been sober since my very first meeting when I was
Wow.
I was 26, and I made that decision, and I found the program. But my first sponsor, and she would have never ever said that she was my first sponsor, was my grandmother.
Oh my God.
Who had 26 years sober when I said I wanted to go to meetings, and she introduced me to her friends, and that was my first round of meetings, was me and a bunch of women. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But that was that's my DNA. That's who I grew up in, around alcohol and drugs.
Wow.
Genetics slows
genetics.
the gun.
Oh, yeah, for
Environment
sure.
pulls the trigger.
We're three people in recovery here with three same stories. I mean, they're all different, but
Right.
the fact that we're all from alcohol and drugs,
Right.
it leads to one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
All right, so that was a fun game talking about before recovery, and we've shared our stories on here, and Brittany, we're very we're looking forward to hear you share your story.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you for having me.
Absolutely. So the floor is yours to give us some experience, strength, and hope. Now we get rid of booze and drugs, and coffee is our next thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I won't give that up. Okay. I almost want to be like, I'm Brittany, I'm an addict. Like, okay. So, to start off, like I said, I was raised in a very like violent, drug addicted home. My dad was a biker and also did illegal things. And my dad was also the first person to give me any drug, which was alcohol. And I share about this because it's the first time I ever experienced any type of drug. And I was sledding, and I was about 9 years old, and it was cold. And back when like you're a kid, we would put on like 20 layers of clothing and like go outside and stay outside all day. And I remember I was sledding all day, and like my dad gave me his like thermos, and he like made hot chocolate, right? And of course, like that ran dry, and I'm coming home, and I knock on the back door, and he lets me in. And I remember I was freezing cold, and my dad said, "Here, take a swig of this. This will warm you up." And it was a water bottle, with no wrapper on the outside, and it was like tinted blue, and it had this clear liquid in it. And I was 9, so I'm thinking, water? Like, how's water gonna, heat me up? And I took a big old swig of that water bottle, and it was Kentucky moonshine, and it was delicious. And I remember being like, oh, this is nice. Like, this is good, I just got goosebumps. And that's kind of like, I remember that, because a lot of my childhood, I feel like my mind has kind of like blocked a lot of trauma out. And ironically, like, the more that I stay clean, the more that I like, remember things that have happened. So like I said, I have 2 younger brothers. I was the oldest child in that household, and I'm also the only girl. I have 2 younger brothers, and they're like my world. So my mom and my dad married before they had me, and they were married for almost 10 years, and it was 10 years of hell. And my mother's side of the family lived in Minnesota, so she really never had a way out, okay? And she blamed my dad for years for trapping her here in Indiana. Not like Minnesota's any better, though. But my dad's mom and dad, my grandparents, like, lived in Highland, and that house is actually like where I live today, which is pretty cool. It'll all come full circle, I promise. And my grandparents were like my world, okay? Their house was like a safe haven. There was love. There was kindness. There wasn't screaming. There was no violence, no abuse. And it was just all love. And my grandma taught me how to cook, and my grandpa would teach me about reading stocks in the newspaper back when they were in the newspaper. I don't know. They still might. Who fucking reads the newspaper? I hope I can curse. So it was really cool. I love going to my grandparents' house for the weekend, and like I said, it was like my little safe haven. That house was like magical. So when my mom and my dad finally got a divorce, or was in the process of going through a divorce, me and my brothers, we would bounce around to a lot of different houses. One time we stayed in Riverside Park, actually, in Hammond. I remember my mom like packed the Cadillac full of whatever she could, and we pulled up in that park and we slept overnight. And I remember not being able to sleep because I kept looking out the window to make sure that like nobody was going to come. I had this fear. I was full of fear my whole childhood. I didn't want nobody to like hurt my brothers, and I definitely didn't want me or my brothers to get separated because, like, my parents are making poor choices nowadays. Like, I mean, CPS could have came in at any time, and, I was always worried that like something was going to happen to us. And I felt like the secrets that our family had were going to be revealed. And I just remember like, whatever goes on in this house, you don't tell nobody what goes on in this house. This is our house. And I remember just like keeping secrets at a very young age. Like, we don't talk about that. Like, we don't talk about what happens at home, at school. Like, it was very private. I would get in trouble. I would feel afraid to let any type of secrets out because I didn't want anybody to know what really was going on. Because when I would go to school, I played a completely different part. That's where like I played like being normal. I'm just a normal kid, My mom, she kept a clean house though. She kept a very clean house, very OCD, very tidy. And, my dad was like a working man, right? So my mom was like a stay-at-home wife. And when all of this like came down where, we separated, I remember we moved, we stayed the night at the park, and then my mom met this other girl and we were living on her porch. I remember my mom always said like, this is temporary. Everything is temporary, which didn't create a stable environment for me or my brothers at, such a young age. Like, kids thrive with consistency and stability, and we didn't have any of that. But like I said, I always had my grandparents' house in the background to feel normal. on the weekends or feel normal during school hours. And then, when I was home with this family, life was just different. It was that secret. And, I had went to even 3 different 5th grades. Like we just kept moving and moving and moving until this day. I could pack a bag and be good for a month. You know what I mean? Brian and I were in rehab together. He knows the bags that I pack. I would come out with like 7 different outfits like every day. Like fucking rehab was a fashion show. Like how pathetic. I'm serious. It was so awful. Obviously I didn't stay clean after that. But just things were really crazy. My mom had all these different boyfriends, and she's a drug addict, smoked crack, she's a prostitute at the good old TA in Gary. Like fucking truckers for another rock, dude. Like the shit that I seen was awful. I don't know how deep I can get into this, but I'm sure you could edit out later if that was inappropriate. But my mom was just full of chaos. I never knew when she was coming home. This is like when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, right? So right before I was a teenager, I had my 2 little brothers. She would be out all night. I remember watching, for some reason, I don't know, I would watch ABC 7 News, right? Because like the TV would only get like 9 channels. Like we didn't have cable. We didn't even have a heater in the trailer that we lived in. We ended up settling down in Gary, Indiana, in a trailer park, right? Fit right in there. And this is where all this was going down. And I remember our furnace was red tagged, and we had to have like this propane tank with this huge thing that like blew flames into the air to like keep the room warm. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is insane, because we're all crammed into this living room in this trailer, and we have this very, it looks like it should be outside, like in a garage, inside of our house where there's like moving blankets, and like there were like 6 twin beds lined up, and my mom and her boyfriend and like me and my brothers would be like in this room, like staying warm in the winter, and I remember like we had no AC in the summer, like it was a fucking mess. And, I ended up, it was a pretty messed up divorce with like the custody battle and all that. And my dad had owed my mom like all this child support. Well, my mom was like, hey, well, if you give me this X amount of money up front, I'll give you custody of Brittany. So like, here I am, like, I'm getting sold. Yeah, like I'm getting sold, right? Like this is going to come back to haunt me, and I was sold to my dad, and living with him was awful, to be honest. I became like a housewife to my father. He worked, he was, doing drugs, but I know they say a functional addict, but was he really? He used and was able to hold a job and buy me food and clothes. Like I had things with my dad. With my mom, we didn't have anything. My mom would sell her food stamps for drugs. We just didn't, most of the time, like our clothes couldn't even be washed, and we definitely weren't fed with my mom. So, moving to my dad's, I tried to look at like the bigger picture. At least I get fed here. Like this is good. I get food. And like my dad's a hunter, so hunter-gatherer. So we had like deer steaks and all. So it appeared good, but like it was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. And I remember when I was in high school, like I said, school was always my safe haven, like my grandparents' house. School was a place where like I could make friends, and I was in sports, and I loved math, and I just excelled in school, and I loved it. I like I said, I still had this like huge secret at home. And then like, some of my, good friends in high school, like they would know about what was going on, but it was still a secret. And, I'm going to school, and when I moved into my dad's house, I had to switch high schools, which was awful. Like switching high schools in the middle of your junior year, right? Where you're like in sports and you have these relationships, and now you're switching schools and you're going to a school that has a dress code, and you can't do, like, I couldn't do anything. I felt I got voted most arrogant my senior year. Brian's like, yeah, no shit.
Oh boy.
I did. I'm like, God, why is this even a fucking thing? Like, why is this an option? So I did. I got voted most arrogant because I hated that school. I almost want to put it on blast, but what?
I got voted most likely to end up in prison.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That's so fucked up. Like, how can they have that? Like, did your school have that?
I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Like, what is this
They
shit?
definitely had it, but I can't remember what anything was.
So yeah, needless to say, like clearly I hated that school. And I during that whole time, like my dad was very controlling. I was not allowed to have friends. I was supposed to come immediately home after school, cook him dinner, clean his clothes, and then homework was always last. It was just, I always was walking on eggshells around my dad. I never knew when he was going to blow up. And this is like one memory that like I'll never forget. I would cry on the way to school like every single day. And I remember he called me a cunt. I don't know if I could say that, but I'm going to say it. And he was like, I bet you don't even know what that word means. And he said, it's somebody who can't, and he was screaming like spit was flying out of his mouth. He's like, it's somebody who can't understand normal thinking. So really it was an acronym. So really we could, say that. So I just remember being like, wow, like this is just awful and evil. And I just felt so alone, so miserable. And I wanted to escape. I wanted to feel nothing that I was feeling. And I remember I started getting like, we would call it Thirsty Thursdays. And I was like taking a bottle of Smirnoff to school, this school that I hated. And I would get shit-faced in the parking lot. And I never drank because like the alcohol tasted good. Like I drank because I wanted to get fucked up and I wanted to not feel or not think or give myself the illusion that the reality that I was living in really wasn't reality at all. And I just got goosebumps again. Like that was like the biggest lie that I would tell myself is that I was always running from reality, and you can't run. I figured out like you can't run from reality. You know what I mean? Like you can't. I tried, trust me. And, I kind of, went off to college and did the whole college thing, was a cheerleader. And, I made some more friends. And then like I get a job and I'm in the serving field, which is perfect if you want to become an addict. Like it was great, like I had a fake ID and we're going out all the time and it was fun, like life was fun. I had moved out of the house, right? So I had this like newfound freedom where like I didn't have to follow rules. I didn't have to feel like I was somebody's like maid or servant, and I could do whatever I want. And I did everything the opposite of like what my dad taught me and instilled in me. I learned like really quickly that like being like a sexual object in a man's eye could pay off. Not in the long run, but momentarily it would. And a lot of times, like I took that, how my mom would always say temporary, like it's kind of screwed up because like everything was like temporary in like the, the whole like partying and like drug field. And once again, it made me feel like, this wasn't going to last forever. Like everything was, instant gratification. Loved it. Absolutely. Signed me up. There's a part that I missed though, in this story, like, I don't know. Okay. When I was in high school, before I had like moved back into my dad's and switched schools, I lived at my grandparents' house, the house that I live at today. And my grandma passed in 2001, and my grandpa became like my hero. Okay. Like he was a stand-up man, hard worker. And he loved me unconditionally. And he treated me like a human being. He was like the first family member that treated me like a human. And on Christmas Day 2005, we found out he had 4-stage lung cancer. And I remember we were at Munster, the community hospital here in town, and the doctor was very nonchalant, very emotionless, and he was just like, "You have 4-stage lung cancer. It's terminal. Like, he's gonna die." And I remember I called that doctor a fucking liar, and I ran out of that room, and I ran all the way home. This is when I started to notice the development of being compulsive and having an obsession. So like even before like drugs, like these characteristics were instilled in me, and they were all caused by pain and fear, really. Fear of losing somebody that I love so much. So this is just how I dealt with it. And I became compulsively and obsessively like running. I ran and I ran and I ran. I physically ran. I was running like 10 plus miles a day every day, and I started not eating. And if I were to eat, I would throw it up. So now I'm in control of the only thing that I have control over, because my family life's a mess and a huge secret. My grandpa's dying of cancer, and here I am like, what do? I don't know what to do. This is all I know how to do, so I'm going to control what I can. And I was never able to have any type of like healthy behavior mechanisms before I actually found recovery. I was never able to do anything healthy. I couldn't even like brush my teeth like consistently. Like I'd do it here and there. I'd have like spurts of like healthy habits, right? But overall, like I didn't have that consistency and stability, because once again, everything's temporary. And that didn't really go too well. That's an important part of my story, because I realized that drugs are such a small part of this whole thing. Recovery is restoring to a healthy state of mind and body, and eating and getting enough sleep is something that I learned was actually self-care. That my grandpa ended up passing away 2 months later, and that's when I went and lived with my dad and had to switch schools and all that good stuff. So, like I said, back to like when I was a server and partying, this is when like doing drugs and like drinking alcohol was a good time. I was fun. I was somebody, you know what I mean? And people enjoyed being around me, and I really liked the sexiness of it. I really did. I remember like my favorite movie ever is Forrest Gump, and I'm sure you have seen it. Mm. But like there's a part in Forrest Gump where like Jenny, like she's all like skinny, right? And she's like doing cocaine. And I remember being like, wow, I want to be like her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, like what the fuck? Like I remember like, wow, that's sexy to me. Like I like the way that looks, And I did. I was doing all types of shit. I was like the life of the party. Like social media was like huge, and how you presented yourself was important, and all of this shit fed my ego. And it kept me really sick. It kept me like making bad decisions. I would take Xanax and I would wake up in like different men's houses. Like me and my friend had this thing, like wherever we wind up that night, like we'd take a picture of the bathroom. We had a collection of like how slutty. We had a collection of like all these different guys' bathrooms, like what they looked at, like how did I get here again? Strangers, drinking and driving. Like it was just all like really, really bad. A lot of very bad choices, and I was unable to make any good choices. So I remember the day that I first did heroin like it was yesterday. It was September 28th, 2009. Okay. I had just turned 19 years old, and one of the girls at the bar that I worked at, she was getting married. It was her wedding day. And that morning I woke up, and, we're drinking mimosas, and I'm doing the hair and makeup for this wedding, right? So I'm doing that, And the day goes on, and the girls are so beautiful, and she gets married. And I had this one really, really good friend, this girl. She was like my sister, like the love of my life. Like, there was a part we tried dating too, but we're not even going to talk about that. So, this girl, right? Like, we were together all the time. We were the ones that were creating the pictures of the guys' bathrooms. Like, this was like our thing. Everything was on a digital camera, right? You'd have like 4,000 pictures in the morning, and you'd plug it in your USB to your little MySpace back when that was going on. And, everything had a different album. Like, but that night we met up with one of my, I was looking for Adderall. Okay. And, the girl was like, well, I don't have any Adderall, but do you know anybody who does heroin? And I'm like, no. And then I'm thinking, I want to try that. I want that. I want to see. I want to see, Yeah. So we met up with this girl, and she sold me my first bag of heroin. And I remember she was like, it's not like cocaine. You don't do a big fat line. I had my nails done. Well, I always have my nails in now. But like back then when like the flat was like cool. I guess they're doing that again. I don't know. I don't like it. But she put it down on the baby changing table and like took some wet eyeliner and made a little line. She's like, don't do a line any bigger or fatter than that. And of course, I'm like, I'm going to do this whole fucking bag. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm a drug addict. Like, I didn't know I was a drug addict then. I didn't know I was a drug addict till later. Like, I was the last one to find out, really. And I did it. And it made me sick and itchy. And throughout the night, it's crazy because I have the picture from like, I'm taking a picture, right? I've never done heroin. And then the next one, I look completely different. My pupils are like pinpoint and my eyes are so blue. And I remember I'm like, I like doing heroin. It makes my eyes look sexy. Like, what these are the thoughts, right? And I hated it, but the girl that I was doing with it, she enjoyed it. So I'm like, I'm just gonna stick around, and I'll do it with you so you don't feel alone. Needless to say, like 3 months later, I'm shooting heroin, and that took me down a real bad life. I mean, shit. I was doing all types of stuff to get heroin, everything. Drugs like made me lie. Drugs like, and I want to blame the drugs, but really it was like, I've been lying this whole time, like from a young age, like I'm keeping secrets, which I found out is lying, and, I just became that like drug addict, right? And I remember like I'm shooting heroin every day and I'm going to work. And I remember like one of the first times I was going through withdrawal, I was watching Requiem of a Dream. Oh my God. Goosebumps again. I cannot watch that movie without like remembering like how awful I felt. And I'm going through withdrawal, right? And nobody knew that I'm doing this drug. Nobody besides the other girl I was doing it with, right? Secrets, right? Sexy, risky. I like this. And I was going through withdrawal, and I remember I called my dad. Okay. Now, my dad found recovery the year that I graduated in 2008. Okay. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew that for about 2 hours every night, he'd pick up this blue book and leave. And I didn't have to like walk on eggshells. Like I can finally fucking lay down on the couch without freaking out. Cause like the second his bedroom door opened up, like you're like, whoa, like you get up and acting like you're fucking cleaning shit, like you're at work and you start like dusting shit that doesn't need to be dusted. Your boss doesn't yell at you. Like that's how it was. So I didn't know that like my dad was in recovery, right? I didn't know this. And I called my dad and he's like, where are you? I'm like, I'm at my friend's house. He's like, get your shit together. I'm coming to get you. And my dad took me to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I remember it was Sunday night at the Marine House in Valparaiso. Okay. And we got there a little late and we're all standing outside because it was like a nice spring day, right? So we're all standing outside. The meeting was held outside. And I remember my dad was like, this is my daughter. she's a junkie. Help her. Right. And I remember like my first meeting, like all these people were like, oh, my kids got taken away. My car got repossessed. I just got out of prison. I'm in jail. I have warrants. Like, I'm like, these people are fucking drug addicts, but I'm not. Okay. I have none of these problems. Okay. I'm 19 years old, right? I had a driver's license. I had a car. I had no kids. I wasn't, I had none of this stuff. I could not relate. I just, there was nothing for me to compare. I didn't fit. I felt like I'm young. Maybe these people couldn't figure out how to do drugs, but like, I'll figure out how to do this because like I wanted a good life and I wanted to be a drug addict, right? I did. I wanted both. And until I realized that I can't have both, I was going to continue to try to find out how can I, and I would try it every way you can. I tried this drug with this drug and this and only using this. Nothing worked. I can't have both. I cannot have a good life and be a drug addict. I can't. I'll lose every single fucking time. Okay. And I remember my dad let me like live with him for a little bit, but I had to go to these meetings. And I remember like I would sit outside of the meeting and like somebody fucking gave me a basic text, right? Obviously, I'm like this new person. They're like, let's shower her with, So I'm like reading this fucking book, right? And I'm still like, none of this applies to me. And I remember I wouldn't even go in the meeting. I'd sit outside of the meeting and I'd read a couple pages and then I'd get back and my dad would be like, how'd that meeting go? And I would just regurgitate like whatever I read on the pages, right? I was always like a really good bullshitter, right? Like I could make it sound believable, right? I was a liar, really, okay? And I didn't stop. I ended up like continuing, like bouncing around on people's couches, doing this, doing that, doing drugs. And, I'd gone to rehab. I think I've gone to rehab like, almost 30 times. 30 times, right? And none of them ever worked besides the last time that I went, So to kind of like fast forward through like the horrors of addiction, because like I've done it all. Like you can't tell me one thing that like I've never robbed a bank. Thought about it, but like I've never robbed a bank. But like I did a lot of really fucked up things. There was a point where I was facing a manslaughter charge. I woke up and somebody who I was partying with, somebody who I went out with just to have fun, right? We're just going to have fun. Well, he had so much fucking fun that he didn't wake up. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, it was like the first dead body that I had ever seen. And I'm just like, wow. And I kept fucking getting high. And long story short, I didn't get charged. But let me tell you what, my whole life flashed behind my eyes. I did the whole, Suboxone and methadone thing and all that stuff and withdrawed from methadone for 6 months. I finally had gotten, arrested. And I had served like 30 days in jail. So like what I'm realizing is that all of these things that like I said, I'm not getting clean because like I'm not an addict. Like none of those things had applied to me. Within just a couple of years, all of those things applied to me. I ended up having a daughter on methadone. Okay. And I remember just feeling like the biggest piece of shit ever. Right. And, she came out and, she had like the high pitched scream, like the baby scream. And I remember just like crying, like, why? Like, why? What is fucking happening? Like, why is this my life? I still didn't understand that I was in the problem and it was me. The whole time it was me, and I'm sitting here like, well, it's her dad because he's an alcoholic. Like I kept like blaming other people. Like it could never be me because I was a victim. I was a fucking victim. Okay. And yeah, there were times where I was a victim, but like playing with this like victim card and this victim mentality kept me very fucking sick for a long time. And it caused a lot of pain in everybody else's life that I was around. I was like a cancerous cell. I infected everybody and everything that I touched during active addiction. And I didn't give a fuck. about it. I just wanted to get high. I just wanted to have fun and get high. And, there were a couple of overdoses in there. That didn't stop me. That didn't stop me at all. Fucking kidding me? I was pissed when I woke up. I remember the second time I woke up from my overdose, and I was like, not again. And I'm thinking, where's my fucking dope? That's crazy. It didn't stop with heroin, though. I wish it did. I ended up, when I was almost getting charged with that manslaughter charge, that was enough to scare me into getting clean for like 6 months. Okay. And during that 6 months, I went to meetings and I worked a couple steps. I didn't do a 4th step. And I remember I had gained a little bit of weight, right? Now remember, I have a fucking issue with my body image and my ego. And I gained a little weight getting clean, right? So guess what I did? I developed a crack addiction, and I smoked crack one time for the next 6 fucking years. I promise you I did too. Let me tell you. I ended up somehow fucking getting this really good job and career that I have till this day. Like I said, I'm an insurance claim specialist, and I've been able to hold that job down for 11, 12 years. My second year, it's fucking crazy. The second year, right, I had made $250,000 in 9 months because I work a 9-month schedule and then off the rest. And I smoked crack, smoked it all up. I was fucking getting evicted. My NIPSCO was about to get shut off. My daughter, actually, I lost custody of my daughter and she went to her dad. And, money was the thing, right? Remember, I got sold at a young age, right? Like my mom always would be like, well, if your dad would pay child support or if we had this much money, like we'd be okay. Money makes us feel good, right? Well, guess what? I'm really grateful for that because spending $250,000 on crack, I was the most miserable that I had ever been. So I made the most money. Like money was also like a solution, right? An unreal, like it wasn't a solution, right? I had made the most money I'd ever made. I was the most miserable that I had ever been. And then I started realizing like what life really is about. These little areas of my life where like I was able to like not use drugs enough to like come to a aha moment. I'm really grateful that it took that because even though it was a $250,000 lesson, it was a very valuable lesson that I get to use for the rest of my life. And I get to share it with other people because money isn't everything. Yeah, it's nice, but it doesn't bring me peace. It doesn't make me feel good about myself. Does it make me be a good person? It just appears that way. It's not real. It's not fucking real. And I'm tired of living in delusion at this point, right? So, I'd like to joke around and say that like I was very like vampiresque, like when I was IV heroin user, like it kept me looking young, right? I thought it was so cute, you guys. No idea. I thought I had it together, you guys. And it kept me like young, I feel like, right? 2 fucking weeks in a crack addiction, I ended up fucking with holes all over my body. I'm not kidding. I decided that like shooting crack would be a great idea, right? And I did it for like 2 weeks. And then I tried to go to rehab, right? And I'm sitting there fucking, all right, I'm about to do this again, right? Here we go. Why don't you know what fucking time? How many times have I been to rehab? And I'm sitting there, and one of the questions that the nurse asked, she was like, do you have any wounds that won't heal? I'm like, oh man, I gotta show you this one. Like, wait till you see this fucking one. Like, it was like this big, right? And it was black. And there was like green goo coming out of it. And I'm still fucking shooting up everywhere. Like, whatever. Like, I'll deal with it later. That was another really good one. Like, I'll just handle it later. We'll figure it out, right? Well, I had about like 18 of them, like wounds all over my body, and they wouldn't heal. And she was like, I remember she backed up in her chair, and her chair slid back. And she's like, you need to go to the emergency room right now. I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like, for what? Right? Like, It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll put a Band-Aid on it. It's like this fucking big gaping with fucking goo coming out of it. Like, and I go to the hospital, and I remember, like, this is another thing that, like, really pissed me off. I don't know, have you guys ever experienced this? But, like, going to the hospital or going to rehab, like, people treat drug addicts like they're a piece of shit, and I don't like that. And, or at least that's how I felt. Maybe that was my victim mentality. Maybe they were just doing their job. I don't know. I felt like they hated me, and I felt like they were judging me. And I remember the doctor, like, went through and made, like, these X's on every wound and, like, stuck these, like, Q-tips in these wounds, right? And, like, tested them. I tested positive for MRSA, staph, sepsis, and there's another one that I can't even fucking pronounce, okay? And they couldn't, like, get a vein anywhere. I remember I had this, like, battery pack of, like, antibiotics on my neck, and I'm thinking, gotta get out of here. I need to go smoke some more crack. Like, I'm still, like, not wanting to, like, it's still not hitting me. Like, I still wanted to use. Like, it was not enough. You would think that, like, even losing my child would be enough for me to be like, hey, maybe you should get clean so you can be a mom instead of a piece of shit. None of that was enough for me. And, you know, I ended up being in the ICU for a while and tried treatment a few more times. You know, nothing at all. And at this point, like, I'm, you know, working, right? I'm working from home, but I'm, like, always late to work, right? That makes no fucking sense. Like, how am I should be early. I was not early. I wasn't able to, you know, do any type of self-care, which, like I previously said, like, getting enough sleep at night, that's self-care. Making sure you're eating food, period. Like, even animals know how to drink water and eat food. And I was under that. I couldn't even get that together. I had wanted to kill myself so many different times, like, throughout this whole process. Like, I remember, like, praying for the courage to just run in front of a train. Or I would fantasize about, like, running in front of, like, a semi truck. I remember one time I was going to jump off the bridge, like, on Grant Street in Gary. I'm like, just jump. And I just hated the way that my life was unraveling. I felt completely out of control. And there were moments where, like, I knew it was all my fault, but just didn't know how to get out of it. Like, how do we make this better? Everything just seemed, I just felt like I was supposed to be a drug addict. I felt like, you know, God, you know, made doctors and firefighters and teachers. And then there was me, a junkie, and I felt like I was just playing the part. And I was damn good at playing the part, so I thought. And, you know, I soon realized, like, you know, like, that it got to the point to where, like, you know, like, I'm selling my body and I have a fucking job where I'm making all this money and I'm just, my finances are out of control. Like I said, I'm late. I was not being a mom. I had abandoned my child for almost 5 years, like, during this whole process. I got down to 92 pounds. I had scabs all over my face. We should make that picture the thumbnail. That would be really great because it's awful. It's awful. And, man, I was dying. I looked like death. And, you know, I almost feel like living that way was worse than dying, really. Like, why can't I just be at peace? And, you know, I let everybody down. I felt like the biggest failure ever. I wasn't trustworthy. I definitely wasn't reliable. I remember my brother found me in a plate of mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving. Like, I remember my family just being completely disappointed in me. And, you know, it was pretty fucked up. And, you know, my mom ended up moving back to Minnesota, and she spent the better half of the last 10 years in a women's state prison there. And, it's pretty cool because, you know, I'll circle back to this, but I did the whole hotel thing for a while. where I'm like living out of hotels thinking the feds are like outside my door. I did that for a while. I would let drug dealers come live with me, right? Because it was convenient and it kept me sick. I liked whatever kept me sick because like being sick and like delusional felt normal. I had lived in it for so long that, it was comfortable because it was familiar, not because it was truly comfortable. It was just something that I was used to, like how you mentioned earlier about like normal becomes like what you're used to. I didn't know what normal was. I couldn't even fathom what normal was. I just knew what like my reality was, and most days I didn't even know what that reality was. Got kind of sloppy there for a while. And this last time, I was living in a house and I trapped it out, right? I let my drug dealer come live with me and hurt his family. And, we're selling drugs out of the house and I'm doing drugs. And at this point, like I stopped heroin, right, to do crack. And then like in the end, I ended up fucking drinking a handle of Jim Beam like every 2 days. And then I'm like doing thousands of dollars of freaking crack and heroin every day. Like I ended up doing it all and smoking cigarettes, right? And I had all these like really unhealthy addictions. Like I liked going to the strip club and I liked that whole scene and I liked going to the casino. And I soon realized that I liked anything that like made me feel like I was escaping what really was going on. I never wanted to look at what really was going on because it was my fault and I didn't want to look at that. And my clean date is February 12th, 2023. And on February 11th, I called my dad. It was like 3:30 in the morning, and he answered, which was crazy. It was a whole like divine intervention thing because my dad never sleeps with his phone like in bed, right? And he answered on the second ring, and he was there within 20 minutes. And I brought my computer because that's my work, right? I brought my computer. I brought my TV. I brought my Polaroid camera because I like taking pictures. And then I brought an outfit that didn't fit me. And I left everything behind. Everything. All of it. Because I was lucky enough to like get away with my life. I realized, like I said, like money's just money and stuff is just stuff. And I'm so grateful that I learned that because there's nothing real in it. It's not real. At the end of the day, like it's me. I had to get high with me to hang out with me. And I kicked on my dad. My dad put me in the basement with a 10-year-old Cane Corso named Otis. And I stayed down in that basement withdrawing and hallucinating for 12 days. And I remember like my dad and my little brother lives at home. And he would just look at me like you're disgusting. What a disappointment. How dare you do this to our family name? What do you think Grandpa would think of you right now? My dad would show me pictures of my daughter. Don't you even care about her? You don't even care about your own daughter. Are you okay with not being a mom? Damn. And going through withdrawal without the drugs kind of had me thinking like, wow, I gotta stop. I need to stop. I want to stop. How can I stop? And I don't recommend it, but I did go through all of them withdrawals like completely, like without any medical like people there and it was rough, but I did it. And I remember taking on the decision. I remember thinking, this is going to suck, but you're going to do it. It's going to suck, but it's possible. And I held on to that. And every day, like I would wake up and I'd go outside and smoke a cigarette and I'd be like, all right, day 2. Day 3 of like fentanyl and alcohol withdrawal. Like, we got this. I remember, like, I don't know who the fuck I was talking to, but I was like, we got this. Like, we can do it. It's going to suck. And once I accepted, like, this is going to be bad, it was crazy. Like, the acceptance of that brought me a little bit of peace, brought me a little bit of motivation that maybe I could do it. Right? Because like I'd see all these people like that were clean, right? And like working a program. And I just felt like I was never going to get it. But like I believed that they really were doing it, and just maybe I could do it too. Just maybe. What do I have to lose? I've lost everything. I'm a full-blown drug addict, and I don't have nothing. I have nothing. I have no family. I'm nothing. I am nothing. Not that I don't have anything. I was nothing. I was nothing. And I ended up going to rehab. And I went to rehab completely clean. And I remember people were like, what kind of fucking addict shows up to rehab clean? I'm like, well, I'm serious. Like I really want this. And I did. I participated in every class. I gained 40 pounds in rehab, you guys. We were in rehab before he knows, like a little chubby. So, I went to rehab and I completed rehab, and I'm a really big, like, halfway houses. Go to a halfway house, because this is where I realized. So from the moment that, like, you decide to get clean, right? And you get clean, from like that point until like starting like step 1 and like getting in the program, like the window is so small, you have to jump. And if you don't jump, you're going to go back to what you know, which is that it's uncomfortable, right? But it's familiar. You're going to go back to that. Okay. And that's what I did every time. Like I went back to an unhealthy environment, and what did I do? I got high again. And I'm fucking being a liar, and I'm being a piece of shit, and I'm not answering my daughter's phone calls because I have scabs all over my face and I can't put my fucking crack pipe down. That's a problem. So I did whatever they told me to do. I got into a halfway house. I got a sponsor. I started working steps. At the halfway house, like I was like, great, I got to be here with 14 fucking females. I was a guy's girl, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't fucking hang out with girls. Fuck girls. Fucking fuck them. And being a part of that rehab, like, or halfway house, like, taught me how to, like, wake up on time and meditating, starting my day off on the right foot. It taught me to eat, and, like, what to eat, when to eat it, and how much water I should drink. Like, these are things like that. I have to take a shower every day. Like, I wasn't showering. Like, you kidding me? Like, that would take away from like me getting high. Like, fuck that. I sat in my own filth for freaking days. I was pissing in a bucket next to my mattress on the floor because I did not want to leave my drugs alone. And I had a fully functioning working bathroom. I was so sick. And, I did it. My sponsor sat me down and was like, you're learning how to do all this to help another person one day, to help another woman. And honestly, service work and like being of service has been my thing that has kept me clean. I've worked on my steps. I'm able to sponsor other women. I'm in my daughter's life. 2 weeks ago, she called me. She had the flu. And I went and I took her to the doctor, and I had her all week. She called me when she was sick. When she was vulnerable, my daughter called me, wanted to be with me. Do you know how good that made me feel? Like, holy shit. Like, because like I was becoming the mom that my mom was to me, which wasn't a good mom at all. All right. She wasn't good. And I actually get to be a mom, like a real good mom, like a present mom, a caring, a nurturing mom. I get to be that today. I never wanted that before. It took too much work. I didn't want to do no work. I didn't want to work on myself. I didn't want to face reality. I had been running from it for my whole life. Why would I want to start now? Why wouldn't I want to start now? Life is so good today. It's so good. I live back at home in that house that I was withdrawing from, and I get to be a part of We leave the doors unlocked. Like my dad trusts me. And he doesn't look at me like I'm a disappointment anymore. I can, even though he won't say it, I know he's a little tough. I know he's proud of me. And I'm so grateful that I got clean. So grateful. And like the people that I have in my life are amazing. They're so amazing. Like I learned how to have like real relationships with healthy boundaries. I learned how to build self-esteem. You build self-esteem by doing esteemable acts. Like I learned all of this because I decided just maybe I could do it. And I ran with that. And here I am, over 2 years later, clean, living the program and helping others to the best of my ability. And I'm just so grateful because I really never thought that I could do it. I really never thought I could. I just did it like literally. I know it sounds so stupid, but one day at a time, like literally one day at a time, one step at a time. And life is so great. Like I can't believe that like I wanted to distort this reality for so long. I was so afraid. I was so afraid of myself. And like this reality that I have today, it's really fucking good. And I just really can't believe that I ran from it for so long. Anything is possible today. I have a driver's license with a car and I got insurance on my car and it's got gas in it. Like, I'm like, like I never had that before. I didn't have a driver's license for 10 years. So I have all that today. And like the peace that I feel, like I wake up happy. I don't have to wake up and roll off my mattress and try to find a vein for 4 hours while I'm crying with blood everywhere. I don't have to do that today. I don't have to put a needle in my arm to do anything. I can wake up and start my day. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm free. I'm fucking free. And being free is a great place to be. That's it.
That it is. Being free is a great place to be. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I really hope that people will listen to this and be able to hear it because there's so many extremely valuable lessons. The two P's that are coming to mind right now: powerlessness.
Yeah.
The powerlessness that becomes us from drugs and alcohol, and how it just takes over our life. It makes us do things we never would have done.
Never.
And your story is just a huge lesson in that big powerlessness and how it just takes over. And but more importantly is the second P, and that's perseverance. That what you've gone through, the trauma that you've gone through is just, it's enormous. And you made the decision,
Right.
as ugly as it was at that time, to make the decision that I need to do this, and so many people get sober for so many different reasons. And when you truly hit that bottom and you get to that space where you say, I'm done. And
Right.
it's hard. It's hard. I hear your story. I know Brian's story. And, I thank God every day that I never had heroin put in front of me because I would have liked it. And the way that, it just takes over, and it's just, I thank God for that. And to be able to come back from that and share your story the way you shared it so eloquently. Thank you so much again. And being able to help others who have gone through that.
That's
and
the
who
whole
are
point.
going through that. And, especially with the fentanyl being the way it is now,
Yeah.
and how it's just a death sentence. That's what that
It is.
is. And anybody who's on that, using fentanyl recreationally, that's pure insanity, because that's
Complete
just
insanity.
it's just a death sentence. People are dropping like flies everywhere because of that stuff. And you guys have enormous stories that can help so many people, especially right now. I really, really hope that people listen to this and hear your story and hear that, yes, there is a way out. There is a way out. And
Right.
and if you stick with it, it'll be better. Life gets better. The life beyond our wildest dreams. We talk
Completely.
about that all the time, and and just I can't express how much gratitude I have for you coming and sharing
Thank
this
you.
with us. Brian, I know you have a lot of thoughts over there. He was judging you the whole time.
I felt it.
That's
I felt
Definitely.
it.
it's what he does.
I fought back tears that entire time because January 1st, 2020 is when I
That's
met
when we were
her
in rehab, yeah.
at rehab.
Rang in the
And
new year at rehab.
her, like myself, we were two of the people that everybody thought they're going to die. They're not going to make it.
Right.
They're going to die in the streets. And
Here we are.
here we are, 2 days apart, both just celebrated 2 years clean.
Hell yeah.
And like, you're my people. Like,
I love
I've
you.
always loved you. And every time I hear you share your story, I fight back tears because I feel guilty because I looked at you like the person that was going to die in the streets. And here you are, like, perseverance, man. Like, what the fuck? Powerful. And I love you. On a lighter note, while listening to your story, I was figuring maybe you should make a career change. You've seen a lot of shitty bathrooms. Maybe you should, be a designer and design bathrooms for a living.
Oh my God.
Oh, one big thing I picked up from your talk is I'm really glad that I quit drinking and using drugs before the social media phenomenon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's no proof.
There's nothing out there. There's nothing.
Everything is out there.
Everything is out there.
Yeah, you lucked out on that.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming out here, and we'll probably have you on again,
Cool.
and you guys will have that to look forward to. And thanks again for listening to our podcast, and be blessed.
Yeah.
I just
sure.
want to say thanks again to our sponsors, Never Alone Recovery.
Woohoo.
If you need help, you're struggling with addiction, reach out. The hotline number is 1-855-831-9996.
Yeah, there is a solution you never have to use again,
Even if you want to.
even if you want to.